G'day, Cam here. Let's start with the thing that drives me spare. Plenty of investigations look busy as hell. Photos, statements, screenshots, pre-starts, permits, a timeline scribbled on butcher's paper, maybe 17 attachments nobody's going to read. And somehow, we all pretend that means we understand the event. We don't. Data is not insight. A pile of bricks is not a house. Same deal. That first step, the gather bit in goal, matters because if you stuff it up, the rest is lipstick on a pig. Safety-wise teaches the PEEPO approach for a reason. People, environment, equipment, procedures, organisation. It gives you a structured way to plan what data you need and where it'll likely come from. That's PEEPO mark number 1. Basically, your shopping list. Before you go wandering around site like a lost tourist with a clipboard. And this is where investigators get itchy. They want to jump straight to, operator error, or procedure not followed, because it feels tidy. Beautiful. Wrap it up by smoko. Except that's not investigation. That's fortune-telling with high vis on. PEEPO captures facts. It does not yet tell the story. It helps you ask broad questions. Who, what, when, where, why, how, and my personal favourite follow-up, if not, why not? It reminds you to look at the witness, the weather, the equipment condition, the actual procedure, and the organisational setup around the job. But at that point, you are still collecting. You are not analysing. That distinction matters more than most people realise. Even witness interviews, and they're important, are just one data source. Useful, not holy scripture. Memory's fallible. People get stressed, distracted, contaminated by other conversations, or they rationalize after the fact. So if you treat every statement like gospel, you'll write a lovely bit of fiction. Good interviewing helps. Free recall first, open questions, active listening, paraphrasing, then closed questions to tidy up detail. Leading questions only with care. Loaded questions? Bin 'em. We're gathering information, not prosecuting a murder mystery on commercial radio. The discipline bit is simple, but not easy. Validate facts before analysis. If it can't be supported by evidence, it's not a fact yet. It's a lead, a claim, or a maybe. Photos, records, logs, documents, calibration data, scene observations, statements cross-checked against each other. That's how you firm things up. The effective investigator, as the workbook bangs on about, uses information validated as fact and refrains from premature conclusions. Too right. So, Chapter 1, if you like. Slow your horses. Build your PEEPO mark number 1. Gather properly. Keep your emotions in check. Don't marry your first theory. Because if you confuse information gathering with understanding, you'll end up with a thick report, shallow findings, and the same incident coming back around for a sequel nobody wanted. Righto, once you've gathered the raw gear, now the real work starts. This is where you move from PEEPO mark number 1 to mark number 2. And no, it's not just copying your notes into nicer boxes. Mark number 2 is where you take what you've gathered, cross-check it against your original data sources, and sort the facts into contributing and non-contributing. That step is gold, because not every true thing matters. Time of day might matter, or it might just be a fact sitting there doing bugger all. A worker had breakfast? Lovely. Not necessarily causal. The vehicle was red? Unless the redness somehow caused the crash, who cares? Investigators who can't separate contributing from non-contributing facts end up with reports full of clutter and recommendations aimed at wallpaper. I've seen this 1,000 times. Someone says, "We found heaps of information." Great. Was any of it relevant? Did it contribute? Or are we just hoarding details like a safety-themed episode of one of those house renovation shows? Mark number 2 forces you to be fussy. Only validated facts. Then sort them. Once you've done that, build a timeline. The timeline is where scattered facts stop being random fridge magnets and start becoming a sequence. Pre-incident, incident, post-incident. Work backwards from the point control was lost, then forwards until the hazard was under control. Dates, times where you've got them, key events in logical order. If the timeline is messy, contradictory, or missing chunks, that's not a formatting issue. That's your investigation telling you it's not ready. And here's the important bit. Timelines connect events, conditions, and decisions. They help you see that a thing didn't just happen, it happened after other things lined up. A task changed. A warning wasn't seen. A supervisor wasn't there. A procedure didn't fit the workers done. A vehicle was in service. A worker was under time pressure. Sequence matters. Context matters. This is where insight starts to emerge. Now, for lower-level events, 5 whys is a handy tool. For more significant stuff, ICAM gives you the fuller systemic pathway. Different depth, same principle. Ask why until you hit a point of organizational control, a point beyond control, or a point where you plainly need more data. And 5 is arbitrary, by the way. Sometimes it's 3 whys, sometimes 7. If you're asking why like a robot and getting nowhere, you're not analyzing, you're chanting. ICAM, when you're ready for analysis, lets you turn those contributing facts into a causal pathway. Absent or failed defenses, individual or team actions, task or environmental conditions, organizational factors. But that only works if mark number 2 and the timeline are solid. Otherwise, you're just moving half-baked assumptions into fancy columns. So the middle game is this: validate the facts, filter the noise, build the sequence, then analyze. That's how you turn data into meaning. Not by guessing early, not by blaming fast, by doing the boring, disciplined bits first, because that's where the truth usually lives. Once you've got real insight, the next trap is writing recommendations that punish personalities instead of fixing systems. You know the sort. Remind workers to follow procedure. Counsel the operator. Reinforce expectations. Thanks, Sherlock. That'll definitely stop a badly designed job, weak supervision, missing risk assessment, or failed defense from happening again. If your analysis says the problem sits in procedures, training, communication, contractor management, risk management, maintenance management, change management, all the usual suspects, then your actions should target those. The safety wise line I like is this: fix the design of the game, not the player. Personal accountability has its place, sure, but it is not a substitute for system improvement. That means your actions need to be smarter, specific, measurable, accountable, reasonable, timely, effective, reviewed. Not vague, not someone should look into it. Give it an owner, give it a time frame, make it clear what success looks like, and for heaven's sake, make sure it actually links back to the findings. If I can't trace your action to an absent or failed defense, or an organizational factor, then it's probably decorative. Then run it through the hierarchy of controls. Start high. Elimination if you can, substitution if you can't, then engineering or isolation, and only then administrative controls and PPE. Admin and PPE have their place, but they're lower order controls. They depend on people getting it right every time, which, and I'm just reading the room here, is not how humans work. If your report contains 15 admin actions and not one harder control where one was possible, you may have written a to-do list, not a prevention strategy. Also, learning isn't the report. Learning is what changes in the next job. That's the bit that matters. Did the procedure get fixed? Did the work planning change? Was the risk assessment trigger clarified? Was the equipment modified? Did supervision improve? Were previous incident learnings actually applied this time? Or did they just die in a SharePoint folder with a heroic title and no pulse? A decent investigation should produce key learnings too, not just a rehash of actions, but the bigger takeaways that travel across the business, stuff other teams can use before they have their own incident. Because if the only value of your investigation is local, you've probably left learning on the table. So here's the wrap. Gather with discipline. Validate before you analyze. Use PEEPO to organize the mess. Use the timeline to make sense of sequence. Use 5 whys or ICAM to build a proper causal pathway. Then act on systems with smarter recommendations and the hierarchy of controls in mind. Because learning only counts when it changes the next bit of work, not when it just fattens the report. We'll keep digging into this stuff in the next one. Until then, ask better questions and don't let human error do all the heavy lifting.